And we are live. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. If you can't hear us, please check that you have unmuted your video. The unmute icon is down in the bottom right-hand corner of your video, so please check that you have unmuted your video if you can't hear us. If you can hear us, send us a thumbs up. Put a comment in, send us a thumbs up to let us know you can hear us. And let us know where you're watching from. It's quite late in the evening here in Ireland, so I imagine that most of our viewers are probably from the States, Australia, or New Zealand. So give us a thumbs up if you can hear us and let us know where you're watching from.
Don't forget Canada, there's got to be some Canadians there too.
Oh yeah, some Canadians hopefully as well. So if you can hear us, send us in a thumbs up in the comments. Hey. Oh, hi Alex from Newfoundland in Canada. Thanks for watching and joining with us tonight. Hello to Ohio. So keep your comments coming in. Let us know where you're watching from. Great to have you all here this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you're calling from. And please feel free to ask questions during our webinar here this evening. We'll be giving away bottles of HiveAlive for everyone who comments will be entered into a draw with a chance to win bottles of HiveAlive. So keep your comments coming in. And if you want to comment, don't forget that you need to log into Facebook to do that. So thanks for everyone for joining us. We'll be kicking off in about 3 minutes, so just waiting for everyone to join in. If you can't hear us, please check that you have unmuted the video on Facebook. And if you can't hear us, let us know. Send us in a thumbs up. And let us know where you're watching from. So hi Philippe, who's in Quebec. Thanks for joining us. And hi Bonnie in Vancouver. My sister is actually living in Vancouver at the moment, so great to have you with us. Oh, and hi Carol. She's calling from South Carolina. Great to have you all here. Hi Richard. Keep your comments coming in. Let us know where you're watching from. And while we have another few minutes, if you've used HiveAlive before, let us know as well. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes, so just giving everyone a chance to join. Get your questions in during the video.
Someone from Ireland is staying up late. Thomas.
Great to have you with us. Oh, another person from Wexford as well. Some night owls. Great to have you all with us.
I'm surprised you don't have anyone from Australia or New Zealand here yet. But it's during the day for them, is it, maybe?
Yeah, it is, yeah. If you are calling in from Australia or New Zealand, let us know. It'd be great to have you guys with us too. Yes, Thomas, you are allowed to stay up past your bedtime. I'll give you this once off.
Mr. Wiles is there. Very good. Hiya, Mick.
And hi to Wilson J. calling in from Pennsylvania. Great to have you with us. So if you're just joining, thanks for joining us. If you can't hear, check that you have unmuted your video on Facebook. If you can hear us and you've just joined, send in the thumbs up just to let us know that you can hear everything okay. And also let us know where you are watching from. Most of our viewers here tonight are from the US, Canada, and a few Irish contingents as well. So keep your comments coming in. Everyone who comments will be entered into a draw to be in with a chance to win some bottles of HiveAlive, and that will be announced at the end. Hello to Enver in Calgary in Alberta in Canada. And Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Great to have you here, Brian. BC as well. Hello, Joe. Hi, Arvin. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so we've just gone 11. So are we? Oh, John, you're here again. Great to have you with us, John. I hope you enjoyed the last webinar and hope you get something out of this evening as well. Hi, Lynn in Utah. And hi, Mary in Ottawa in Canada, and you use HiveAlive. Great to hear that. Please share your opinion on HiveAlive in the comments whenever you get a chance. It'd be great to hear what you think. Hi, Linda. How are you keeping? So thanks all for joining us. It's just gone 11:01, so we might actually get started.
Thanks, Linda. Good evening, everyone. You're all very welcome to our second webinar. I think it's good evening to most people out there. We will be keeping you for about 30 minutes. We will discuss what is HiveAlive, the ingredients, why to feed HiveAlive to your bees, the scientific data supporting HiveAlive, other benefits, comparisons, and then we'll have an introduction to new products, questions, and the competition that Linda mentioned at the end. So the competition, the draw will be held at the end. Anyone who gives us a thumbs up, a comment, a question, anything in the comment field there, you will be included. David will be picking out the winners at the end. You will need to be logged into Facebook to do that. One other thing to mention, the domestic backgrounds here, we're still in quite strict COVID restrictions in Ireland, so we're all calling in from our own homes as well. Okay, so to introduce you to the HiveAlive team, Dara is the managing director and is also a beekeeper. He set up the company in 2010 and collaborated with researchers to develop HiveAlive. HiveAlive was launched in 2012. Linda is operations manager. Linda joined the HiveAlive team in 2013. Her background is in science and she did a research master's on honeybee gut health. My name is Liam. I look after business development, and David is the newest member of the HiveAlive team and is overseeing customer relations. So, what is HiveAlive? HiveAlive is a concentrated liquid feed supplement for bees to maintain colony strength. It is available in multiple bottle sizes to suit all apiaries. The smallest bottle feeds 10 colonies. The next bottle up feeds 50 colonies. The 2-liter bottle feeds 200 colonies, and the 10-liter bottle feeds 1,000 colonies. We also have single-dose sachets available. Some of you may have received these already through your local beekeeping supplier, beekeeping supplies supplier, or through your local beekeeping association. If you would like your local beekeeping association to get some of these free samples to distribute, please ask them to contact us. HiveAlive is made in Ireland following strict manufacturing guidelines set out by the Department of Agriculture, and it is the only feed supplement for bees to be EU approved and FDA compliant. Some new products new to the HiveAlive stable. We launched the HiveAlive fondant with added vitamins and amino acids in autumn of 2020. We brought it to the UK and Ireland first. It was very well received there, and we are planning this autumn to bring it to Europe, US and Canada, Australia, and hopefully New Zealand as well. Also in the pipeline and planning to be launched very soon is HiveAlive pollen patty with added vitamins and amino acids. This will be made from locally sourced pollen and have a high protein content only from premium sources. If you're interested in these products, please ask your local beekeeping supplies store, and if they don't stock it, please let us know. So what is in HiveAlive? The bulk of HiveAlive is made up of our unique blend of seaweed extracts called Shield, and it also contains thymol and lemongrass. Shield is a very unique blend of seaweed extracts specifically selected for honeybees. The seaweeds are extracted using a patented cold process technique to maintain bioactivity. Whilst it is unusual for bees to be fed seaweeds, the practice of adding seaweed to other animal feed is long established. Recently, seaweed active extracts have been used in animal feed to reduce pathogens and to improve productivity, general health, gut health, immune function, and nutrition. And the reason seaweed extracts are so beneficial is due to their antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, immune-boosting properties and prebiotic activity, as well as high levels of vitamins and minerals. HiveAlive also contains lemongrass. Lemongrass is commonly used in beekeeping. It calms the bees and makes the sugar syrup attractive to them. We have incorporated the optimal concentration of lemongrass in HiveAlive. Too much lemongrass may cause robbing, which has been observed with other bee supplements that contain too high a concentration of lemongrass. We do not recommend using HiveAlive at the same time as other supplements that contain lemongrass for this reason, although it's fine to use HiveAlive with any other supplement. Lemongrass also has antimicrobial properties. Lastly, HiveAlive contains thymol. Thymol has historically been used for the treatment of nosema in honeybees. One of the drawbacks of its use is its tendency to separate in syrup. HiveAlive uses a unique emulsification process to ensure it blends easily into sugar syrup and never causes separation or recrystallization. And now I'm going to pass you over to Linda.
Thank you, Liam. So, what are the main reasons for using HiveAlive? So there are four biggest reasons we give for using HiveAlive is that you'll be able to maintain low nosema levels, get more bees, more honey, and improved overwinter survival. So HiveAlive has been shown to reduce nosema levels, and it's the only product proven to maintain low nosema levels long term. HiveAlive is a feed supplement, so we don't usually make claims about disease, but this can be one of the biggest reasons for beekeepers choosing HiveAlive. So most colonies have some sort of spore loads present, and this has been shown to increase susceptibility to other diseases, pesticides, etc. So keep nosema levels low by using HiveAlive, which ultimately will give you better hives, healthier, stronger, more productive colonies. So HiveAlive has also been shown to give more bees. Trials have demonstrated an increase in colony population when HiveAlive was fed, and we'll go through exact results in a few minutes. And as a result of this increase in colony population, colonies fed HiveAlive have higher honey yields. A lot of beekeepers feed HiveAlive in the autumn to help their colonies survive the winter. Trials demonstrate increased survival rates in the groups that are fed HiveAlive. So first of all, we're going to look at some of the trial details related to nosema spore levels. And I'll just actually make the graph a bit bigger so you can all see. Perfect. So yeah, first let's look at nosema. So in all the trials that we've carried out, the hives were fed 4 liters of activated syrup per hive, or with 1 gallon of activated syrup per hive in the autumn and again in the spring. So 4 liters in the autumn, 4 liters in the spring, and these are recommended feeding instructions. So the results that you see here now today are all using those feeding instructions. So this graph shows nosema spore counts. So the orange line is the HiveAlive treated group's nosema spore counts, and the navy line is the control group spore counts. And as you can see, the orange line is lower than the navy line. The HiveAlive group had less nosema than the control group, and this difference increased over time. So at the end of the trial, the HiveAlive group had 57% less nosema spores than the control group. So effect here can be twofold over winter. So we can target Nosema in the gut by feeding, but we can also target Nosema in the hive if the bees store the syrup with HiveAlive added to help keep the levels of Nosema low in the colony overall. Now, we have plenty of beekeepers reporting these findings to us too. So for example, there, a beekeeper in New Zealand, we test our bees for Nosema ceranae during spring and have found that it is very low or non-detectable levels when they're feeding HiveAlive. So just to note that these results are actually published in the Journal of Apicultural Research. So if anyone's interested, I'm actually just going to pop up the link to this paper so you can go look at that if you want to get any more information in your own time. And thanks for that. I've just popped it up there now. So we'll move on to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the trial results to support HiveAlive giving you more bees. So this graph shows colony population, and it was measured over the course of about a year and a bit. So again, the orange line here is the HiveAlive treated group's colony population. The navy line is the control group population. The green bars that you see there are the percentage difference between HiveAlive and control. So as you can see, the difference between the two groups steadily increases over time. By the end of the trial, the HiveAlive group had 89%, which is nearly twice as many more bees than the control group. So this also shows that the effects of HiveAlive are long-term. There's a gradual increase in the differences between the groups, and best results are seen with year-on-year feeding. So we get loads of feedback from beekeepers similar to this, with lots of reports that their hives are exploding with extra bees and growing like never before. Again, these results are in the Journal of Apicultural Research, so if you want to do more reading, check out that link I just sent in there. So yeah, with a few testimonials there from beekeepers at the bottom. So I saw an eruption in hives the first spring. I used it, from Chris in the US, and from Mike in the US as well. The results are dramatic as my hives are growing like never before. We also have another trial to support the claim that HiveAlive gives more bees. So again, population was monitored over the course of a year and a bit. The orange line is the HiveAlive treated group's colony population, and the blue line is the control group population. The green bars are the percentage difference between HiveAlive and control. And again, here, the difference between the two groups steadily increases over time, which confirms our belief that HiveAlive is a long-term solution to colony health and not a quick fix. In this particular trial, colony population increased over 20% compared to the control. And again, we have testimonies from beekeepers saying it has made a huge difference to their brood production and honey production. And speaking of honey production, we'll actually move on now to look at the results from when we monitored honey production when HiveAlive was fed. So in this trial, the food stores were measured over the course of a year and a bit. Again, orange line is HiveAlive, navy line is control, and the green bars are the percentage difference between HiveAlive and control. So at the end of the trial, the HiveAlive group had 45% more honey than the control group. Again, this finding is also reported by beekeepers. So here we have a large Manuka honey producer from New Zealand. Actually, a lot of the Manuka honey producers in New Zealand have used HiveAlive and like it. So on average, production per hive is approximately 25% more, and the hives are more consistent in their production. So just one thing to note here is that all the results shown here demonstrate statistical significance, which can be hard to achieve. And if anyone wants to do any further reading on any of our trials, I'll actually just pop up a link to our Science Behind HiveAlive page. So if you're calling in from outside of Europe, you might get a warning to say visit your local website, but to view the full data, you must click on View the International website. Just to note that. So thanks for bearing with me there. So we'll move on to overwinter survival. So we tracked colony survival over winter. The control group had 15% losses, while the HiveAlive group did not have any. So we believe this is due to the fact that the hives are stronger and healthier going into winter and better able to defend against disease. Starting a long winter with a healthier gut is very important due to the fact that the bees are not able to get out for as many cleansing flights. So this makes HiveAlive particularly attractive to locations where there are tough, long winters. And a lot of beekeepers who use HiveAlive have reported similar findings, especially in locations further north. So for example, we have Nick in New York saying that the colonies we fed with HiveAlive last year have only 15% losses so far, compared to 25% for the rest. My colony loss rate during last year's brutal winter was about 10 to 15%. Other beekeepers in the province had overwinter losses of at least 50% in their colony. So that's from Peter Dickey in Ontario. And then another beekeeper in the US said, I feed HiveAlive in fall to boost hive size going into cold weather. It seems to strengthen the hive to handle colder weather. So, and if any of you listening have feedback that you'd like to share with us on HiveAlive, please feel free to email us in. We're always looking to hear what you think about HiveAlive. So we'll be showing our email details at the end of the slideshow. So just a quick comment then about American foulbrood and chalkbrood. So we carried out in vitro tests to assess the effect of HiveAlive on American foulbrood and chalkbrood. We can't make claims that we treat diseases, but we had heard a lot of reports from beekeepers, so we just wanted to investigate further ourselves. So we found that at feeding concentration, HiveAlive inhibits the growth of the bacteria that causes American foulbrood, inhibits the growth of the fungus that causes chalkbrood. And this is at feeding concentration. So you wouldn't use HiveAlive as a treatment for these diseases, but it does suggest that if we feed HiveAlive, we will keep the levels of these pathogens low and not let them get out of control. So Ireland actually has a damp climate, and incidence of chalkbrood can sometimes be common. And a lot of beekeepers reported that the reduction in chalkbrood incidence was one of the first things that they noticed when they started feeding HiveAlive. So that's it about trials. So we're going to move on to how you use HiveAlive. So HiveAlive is very easy to use. Simply add just 2.5 mils of HiveAlive per litre syrup. And in US measurements, that's 2 teaspoons of HiveAlive per gallon of syrup. So HiveAlive is quite concentrated compared to some other feed supplements out there. It's a small bottle with a big effect. Now, the minimum that we recommend feeding is 4 litres of activated syrup per hive, or 1 gallon of activated syrup per hive. Now, ideally, all syrup fed has HiveAlive added, which is a question that we get asked a lot. The more you feed, the better the results. For best results, feed in autumn and spring. But if you are only feeding once per year, the autumn or the fall is the best time to feed. So for weaker hives that mightn't be feeding, we recommend spraying or drenching. This can be done using a light sugar syrup and using a higher dose of HiveAlive. So the dose to use there is 1 in 100. Instructions are all on the label, so don't worry about remembering those numbers. So it's best to spray once a week for 3 weeks to cover the full brood cycle. Now just spray enough to lightly wet the bees and frames. You don't want to drown them. So spraying and drenching also gives a varroa drop, but it's not effective enough to be called a treatment. But it definitely helps, especially if done when there's very little brood in the frame, like in early spring. And a lot of people ask us, what's the best way to administer HiveAlive? Adding HiveAlive to syrup is by far the best way to administer HiveAlive. Drenching or spraying is good when the bees are not eating or they're weak, or encouraging the bees to clean up the hive. But to get all the proven benefits of HiveAlive, like more bees, more honey, lower Nosema levels, it really is best to add HiveAlive to the syrup to let them eat it. Okay, we'll move on then to some other ways to use HiveAlive. So HiveAlive can also be added to homemade protein patties. candy or fondant or sugar boards, depending on what way you call it. If you're adding it to protein patties, we recommend a concentration of 1 teaspoon per pound of patty. If you're adding it to sugar boards, just one thing to note is that the temperature of the sugar must be below 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 degrees Celsius before adding HiveAlive. And this is so that the bioactives in HiveAlive do not get damaged. Some people spray a light sugar solution with HiveAlive added onto bees and frames instead of using smoke to help calm the bees when they're doing hive inspections. Other beekeepers have told us it's great for encouraging bees to clean up old frames or to draw out new wax. So they just spray or brush on a light sugar solution with HiveAlive added. So then other benefits of using HiveAlive, one of the biggest reasons would be to increase the attractiveness of the syrup to bees. Perhaps if the bees aren't taking down the syrup without anything added, add HiveAlive in there, it will make the syrup more attractive. Another huge reason for using it is it prevents syrup from fermenting. So that means no more black mold in feeders. So this increases the feeding window and prevents bees from eating syrup that has gone moldy, which could cause gut issues for them. It also allows beekeepers to store unused syrup. So if you have made up more syrup than you're going to use, you can keep it until the following feeding season when HiveAlive is added, and it won't go moldy. You can store syrup for at least 6 months. So it's also useful in the introduction of new queens. The smell of HiveAlive can help mask queen pheromones. So it's great if you're adding in new queens and worried that they'll get attacked. So that's actually it from me. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to pass you over to Dara now.
Cool. Thanks very much, Linda. Just a quick one. If you guys, if anyone arrived late, if you have questions that you want to ask, do put them in the chat, and we will try and answer everyone's questions at the end. And also there's a prize as well for I think there's a couple of prizes for the for your comments as well. So okay, so the next part is, why would anyone choose HiveAlive over competitors? So the main reason is that HiveAlive is the only feed supplement actually proven to work. It's proven to get Nosema levels down and keep them down. Other products in the market only appear to have a short-term effect, and with the new Nosema, Nosema ceranae, this isn't good enough anymore. HiveAlive has been proven to increase colony populations, and by significant amounts. In the two large trials that Linda talked about, we saw 20 and 80% population increases. Trials have also demonstrated increased honey production by over 40% and significantly increased winter survival. And to get all this, you must think the HiveAlive is difficult to use or expensive. It's neither. As you can see, it's super easy to use. You can basically just add to your sugar syrup when you're feeding. Because our bottles are smaller than competitors, beekeepers sometimes mistakenly think that the other products are cheaper, but HiveAlive is very concentrated, so you only need a small amount to have a big effect. It can cost as little as 84 cents per hive, which is a small price to pay for big increases in colony population and honey production. And of course, as Linda mentioned, there's multiple uses, and definitely the most popular benefit is the fact that HiveAlive prevents the syrup from fermenting, which most supplements just don't do. HiveAlive is also the most widely available feed supplement around the world. We distribute to over 40 countries. This means we've gone through the regulatory process in each of these countries, so you can trust the quality of HiveAlive. It also means that it works in all different beekeeping situations. From the freezing cold winters of Norway and Canada to the high temperatures of the Middle East, it works. And from the damp climates like here in Ireland to the dry bushlands of Australia, it also works. So to talk about Fimagillum for a second, some people may or may not know, probably most people, North American people will know Fimagillum. It's the drug that was used historically for treating for Nosema. So just to compare the two, the pros and cons. So first off, HiveAlive is simpler. It's easier to use than Fimagillum. Doesn't have any complicated feed instructions, and it's also significantly cheaper, costing less than half the price of Fimagillum to use. But more importantly, Fimagillum was only designed to work on Nosema apis, and it did do that very well for a long period of time. But the problem is this new Nosema ceranae, has muscled its way in and is now the dominant Nosema. And even though in general you can't see the symptoms of the ceranae, you could with the old apis, you could see fecal staining on the front of the hives. But even though you can't see the symptoms of Nosema ceranae, most colonies have it, and it's affecting colonies all the time. Studies show that 50 to 80% of colonies have nosemas, and when it's there, it is damaging the gut. It's literally ripping the epithelial cells, the lining of the gut up. And of course, this leads to the weakening of the colony. And there's lots of scientific data to show that ceranae reduces productivity, makes colonies more vulnerable to disease, and more vulnerable to threats like pesticides. So because ceranae is a threat all year, is a problem all year round, Fimagillum unfortunately doesn't work very well. And this is mainly because Fimagillum only affects the active stage of Nosema, not the spores. So it means that the spores they're in the bee's gut or in the hive are out on flowers will very quickly reinfect the bees. So basically, Fimagillum's effect is only short term, and then basically they re-eat the spores, and it comes right back again. Luckily, HiveAlive has been shown to kill both the live stage and the spores, which stops ceranae from coming back. HiveAlive stored overwinter in the colonies breaks down Nosema spores along with chalkbrood and foulbrood spores. This keeps the disease levels low in the colony, allowing the bees to thrive. The fact that HiveAlive uses natural ingredients means it's safe to use. A lot of people are not aware that Fimagillum is banned in Europe and a number of other countries because it's just not safe for humans. And another point then is that most people know at this stage that antibiotics, if we take antibiotics, that they might help us in the short term, but we do know that they're bad for bacteria in our gut. So they're killing the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. The same thing happens to bees when they consume the antibiotic Fimagillum. The good bacteria in the bees' guts gets destroyed and weakens the bee's immune system. Quite the opposite with HiveAlive. We have studies to show that HiveAlive, we're currently doing studies that are starting to show that HiveAlive does not damage the bee gut bacteria. And in fact, what we're seeing now is that there seems to be some sort of synergy between probiotics and HiveAlive, and they both work well together. And HiveAlive, of course, has lots of other benefits like increased brood and honey production, no syrup fermentation, and keeping other disease levels low like chalkbrood and foulbrood that Fimagillum just can't do. So then to quickly compare, this is I think second last slide, so quickly compare HiveAlive to other feed supplements. Basically, HiveAlive is still the only feed supplement with scientific proof that it keeps Nosema levels low in the long term. We also have scientific proof that HiveAlive increases bee and honey production and reduces overwinter losses. There are supplements out there for many years that still have no published data to show they do anything. In fact, some of them can show they have a negative effect on bee health. HiveAlive also prevents syrup from going bad, allowing beekeepers to store it, which a lot of products don't do. And with some of these stimulants or supplements, the bees can be slow to consume them. And HiveAlive is always readily accepted by bees and is always taken down quickly. But even more importantly, HiveAlive doesn't lead to robbing like a lot of other stimulants do, because it has basically has the right amount of lemongrass, which is great because what you don't want to do is get a colony being robbed because it'll quickly get destroyed by other bees going in, taking other food and stressing the colony out. And basically with all these benefits, HiveAlive easily offers the best value for money for the beekeeper. And then speaking of value for money, we should talk numbers for a second. Depending on the size of the bottle that you get, HiveAlive costs less than $1 per hive. It can be slightly more or less depending on the bottle size. So we take, for instance, this guy in the picture here, call him Bill. Let's see how he can benefit from using HiveAlive. Say Bill is running a small operation with 50 hives. He's mainly interested in honey production. Bill didn't use HiveAlive, but he still did okay and got an average of 100 pounds of honey per hive and sold it at $2 per pound. I ended up making an even $10,000. Now, say you decided to use half the recommended dose of HiveAlive and fed just once a year. We know from the studies that the bill can get up to 40% increase in honey production using HiveAlive. But say it's only 10% increase in honey. Even with a 10% increase in honey, he makes an extra $1,000. If you take away the $50 you spent on the HiveAlive, he's cleared an extra $950. And that's with the conservative 10%. So say he feeds HiveAlive twice a year and gets a 40% increase. He's now clearing an extra $4,000 in profit, and if you take away the $100 it cost for the 2 HiveAlive feedings, he clears an extra $3,900. And that's only just taking honey production into account. It's not taking the fact that he might also sell some bees. As we know, HiveAlive builds bigger colonies, or that he would probably get lower overwinter losses when using HiveAlive. Both these leading to more money in Bill's pocket. So to wrap up, HiveAlive does have short-term benefits, but they're not the main reason why beekeepers use HiveAlive. HiveAlive does have extremely impressive long-term effects which improve year on year, and this has been proven. In fact, it's unique in that it's still the only feed supplement with published proven data to show this, and the only product in the world to show long-term low Nosema levels. HiveAlive is cost-effective for the beekeeper, giving huge returns of productivity with a relatively small investment. And it's easy to use and doesn't require any extra time or work by the beekeeper. It's also reassuring to know it's natural, safe, edible ingredients, and so there's no worries about health issues and honey contamination or employee safety. And beekeepers love the HiveAlive can be so versatile with its many benefits, like the syrup not fermenting and so on. We believe HiveAlive should form part of every beekeeper's feeding regime to keep colonies strong and healthy in the long term. HiveAlive is the long-term solution for healthy and productive bees. And that's the end of our presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I'll just pass you back to Liam.
Thank you very much, Dara, and thank you everyone for being with us. We will now thank you also for all the questions that you've submitted. I can see them coming up on the screen all throughout the presentation. We will try to answer as many of those as we can right now. If we don't get to your question, please email us, info@hivealivebees.com, and we will do our best to answer your questions for you. Keep the comments coming in if you haven't already to be included in the draw, and David will be running that very shortly. So now I guess I'll hand over to Linda to answer the first question.
Perfect. Thank you, Liam. So I'll try my best to get through as many as I can. First question here I can see is from Tina. Is the bottle for 50 hives assuming both spring and fall feeding? So the bottle you're referring to is the 500 ml bottle, and it's enough to feed 50 hives once. So there's 50 feeds in there per colony. So if you need to feed in spring and fall, you would need to buy 2 500 ml bottles. So thank you for that. Fred would like to try it. Fred, if you're a member of a US Beekeeping Association, get your association to contact us. We're currently distributing free samples, small sample, 1 hive samples to US Beekeeping Associations. So if you are in the US, please contact your local beekeeping association. What else have I got here? Dennis, is the trials data available online to support HiveAlive effectiveness against Nosema, increased honey yield, etc., please? Yeah, so if you can see the link that I've put up there, so there's 2 links I've put up, the one to the research published in the Journal of Apicultural Research, if you can check that link out, and then also there's a link to our website. If you're viewing from outside of Europe, select View International Website to be able to see all the data. Stephen, why does HiveAlive cause increased population? We believe it's because the bees are healthier, stronger, better able to defend against disease. They're not dying out as much. So we think that's the main reason for why there's an increased population. Derek, you have anything to add to that while I look for more questions? Please do.
Yeah. That's it really. I mean, there are pathogens in the colony all the time. It's just a case of HiveAlive helping to keep them lower. And that, you know, like any animal, if it's fighting off a pathogen, then it's not going to do very well. And one of the worst ones in some ways is Nosema, not because it kills the colony straight outright, but because it's always debilitating the colony. So I don't know if anyone knows about the life cycle of Nosema. Basically, it reproduces by going into the epithelial cells of your gut, of the bee's gut, the lining of the gut, and then when it starts making new Nosema, it basically bursts out of that cell and makes new spores or new live stages, different stages. But basically what it's doing is it's tearing up the gut of the bee the whole time. And that's why things like for instance, pesticides seem to have a much worse effect when Nosema is around because it gets into the body quicker. It's not able to defend. It's first, the gut line is the first line is one of the first lines of defense. So, but I mean, the seaweeds are also immune stimulatory as well, and that's been shown a lot in other animals as a feed supplement. But we believe the main thing is keeping pathogen levels low.
Perfect. I have another question here. I think it's from Paul in Ontario, in Canada. What is the shelf life of your product? Also, how would you compare your product with Honeybee Healthy? If you want to answer that, Dara.
Well, I think we've kind of done the comparison. What can I say about Honeybee Healthy? I'm not really sure why people use Honeybee Healthy. Trouble for saying that, but shelf life of the product is it's generally 3 years from manufacture, so it depends on when you get it, and then it's good for over 6 months after you open it. We had been saying 6 months, but we're pretty sure it's up to a year anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from Barbara. Due to losses this fall and winter, you're getting new packages. Can this be fed to new packages? Excellent question. It's a great idea to feed HiveAlive to your new packages, strengthen them up to get your colony population up and to get your honey production back on track this year. So great question. Thank you for that. Yeah,
just to add that, I mean, if you're getting a package, I'm assuming you're probably not going to get any honey that year, so it's not going to be an issue. I think there's another question about can you feed it with supers on. So HiveAlive does have a flavor. There's a seaweedy, thymol-y, lemongrassy or flavor and a smell. It's quite a pleasant smell. A lot of people like it, but you don't necessarily want it in your honey. So if you plan to feed loads of HiveAlive to your package and try and get honey off it, I wouldn't recommend that. But then the odds of getting honey off a package would be slim anyway. So the key part is don't be feeding it if you're worried about mixing up into your honey. We say stop feeding 2 weeks before you start putting supers on. And I think there's another question about spraying it. Will it contaminate the honey? No. If someone's spraying it, unless they're spraying bucket loads of it, they shouldn't because they'll end up drowning the bees. If someone's spraying it, the bees will consume it straight away. They won't store it, and if they store it, it won't be so insignificant they wouldn't notice.
And just stand to reassure you, yes, all the mixing instructions are on the bottle or package, so no need to try and remember all the numbers there. Another question from Linda. Have there been any studies regarding the small hive beetle effects? No, we haven't done any work on this. So I don't know, perhaps if some of you have used HiveAlive, have you noticed any effect on small hive beetle? Let us know, but we haven't.
We've had comments on Facebook that they don't have small beetle when they use HiveAlive, but we have no data at all to support that. We need to do some work on that, actually. Yeah.
Question from Mike. How is the new version of Nosema able to be detected? Derek, you want to take it?
That's PC. I've forgotten how so long since we told the PCR, isn't it? It's you can't. Oh. You can kind of look at it. You can see they are slightly different shape. I know a couple of people who reckon they can tell the difference between Apis and Serrani by looking at the shape. One's more oval, one's more round, but these are people who do professionally, so they can do it. But in general, you have to send off to get tested.
Perfect.
Sorry. Another way of kind of looking into it. It's not very scientific, but if you check for spore levels in, say, the summertime or late summer, early autumn, and you've got spores, it's 90% sure it's a Serrani.
So a question from John. Thank you, John. The 4-litre quantity advised as beneficial, is that spring and autumn, or can you split it into 2-litre feeds? No, John, so the results that we showed there is when HiveAlive is fed 4 litres in the spring and 4 litres in the autumn. So if you want to get the results similar to what we've shown in the trials, that's the quantities we recommend. So that's 2 separate feedings of 4 litres each. Now, some people don't feed in the spring, so that's why we say if you're only feeding once per year, that the autumn is the best time to feed, so that you can strengthen your hives going into winter.
But just to add to that, like the autumn is the best time to feed from the point of view of they're eating it for a long. They'll be storing it in the comb, which helps clean up the comb, but also they'll be eating it for a longer period of time than they would be in the spring. So it's if you're going to do it, definitely do it in the autumn or the fall. Yeah.
So another question from Linda. Have you researched if HiveAlive can be fed at the same time we treat bees for varroa mites? And should we feed before, or during, before, or after?
Do you want me to? I'll take that.
Yeah, go ahead and I'll look for another one.
Yeah, there's no problem feeding at the same time. I think some miticides don't want you feeding. I think the formic acid ones don't want you feeding bees at the same time anyway, but that's nothing to do with HiveAlive. It's just the properties of formic acid. And we know that products like AP Guard and AP Lifevar that have thymol in them, they if you start feeding a little bit in advance of those treatments, what the bees react a lot better to when you put those varroicides, those thymol-based varroicides on. Because sometimes when people put thymol-based varroicides on, the bees can freak out a little bit and they tend to go outside the hive or just get upset. But if you feed with HiveAlive in advance, they seem to get used to the smell of the thymol, and they just don't freak out as much, which is nice. So you're stressing the bees out less.
On a similar thread of that, Richard asked, do you see less absconding with HiveAlive? If you're feeding, as Dara just mentioned there, if you're feeding HiveAlive before you feed thymol-based miticides, bees can sometimes abscond when you add those thymol-based miticides. So HiveAlive will reduce that if you're feeding it in advance because they get used to the smell of thymol. Another question from Thomas, has HiveAlive any beneficial effect on varroa? Derek, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So it does, but it's not a varroa product, and it's not enough to be used only as a varroa product. Be very clear about that. But it does help. So, and where we found it really helps is early spring when you're doing inspections. Ideally, there's no brood or a very small amount of brood, so most of the mites are phoretic. If you're spraying light syrup, 1-to-1 syrup with HiveAlive in it, you do get a varroa drop, and it's a significant varroa drop. So what I do and what a lot of beekeepers do is when they do their inspection, they're doing like weekly inspections or every 10 days or whatever it is instead of smoke, just use the spray bottle. So it's no effort then to get a varroa drop. And of course, you know, the mites at the start of the season are fundamental to how many mites you're going to have at the end of the season. So if you can keep them knocked back early on, you're going to do a lot better mite-wise throughout the year.
Perfect. So a question for Liam here then, is Man Lake the only retail seller in the USA? Liam, so if you'd like to take that question.
Sure, Linda. Yeah, we have Man Lake does carry HiveAlive, but we have a number of independent retailers across the US. They're all listed on our website, usa.hivealivebees.com. You can also buy HiveAlive in the US from our website. We have a distribution center in Kentucky serving the US and Canada.
Thank you. Then Mary in Ontario is with the Beekeeping Association. You're wondering how to get samples. We'll be putting up our email in a few minutes, so please just send us in an email to let us know about your Beekeeping Association. Then Jerry, does shipping in freezing weather hurt the product? Yeah, so we recommend storing HiveAlive at room temperature, so not too hot and not too cold. So this is because we don't want to damage the bioactives in HiveAlive, but also if it froze, there could be issues with stability. So we don't recommend freezing it or leaving it out to get frozen. So thank you for that question.
If it does get frozen, make sure you shake it really well.
Then, what sizes do you carry from Sherry? I'm interested in trying here in Ontario. So we have, as Liam mentioned at the start, we have 4 different bottle sizes. So to suit from 10 hives, 50 hives, 200 hives, and 1,000 hives. So multiple sizes there to suit most beekeeping operations. So please check out our website if you're interested to see the full bottle sizes. And Tim actually also asked the same question. So yeah, visit the website and you'll be able to see the prices and the full what sizes are available. Okay. What other questions have we got here?
Will oxalic acid vapor impact HiveAlive in syrup with top feeders? Oh, that's a complicated question. So will oxalic acid vapor impact HiveAlive? I don't think so. I use oxalic acid all the time. It's great and I vaporize it. So there shouldn't be any problem with oxalic acid and HiveAlive, no.
Oh, and hi, Roisin and Bee Supplies in Dublin. Great to have you here. What other questions have we got? Did we miss any questions? I think I've seen someone asking for data, question mark. I don't know what stage you asked that question. If you feel like you haven't got enough data, please let us know.
No, they answered, they read it up. They put it on a comment later on. Yeah. They hadn't seen your link, I'd say.
Okay, perfect.
Time.
So does it work as well in 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 syrup? Does that mean in either?
Well, yeah, I think the better way to answer that is it works better in 2-to-1 syrup because you'll be feeding that in the autumn most likely. It doesn't actually work better in 2-to-1 than 1-to-1. It just means that the odds are if you're using 2-to-1 syrup, you're probably feeding it in the autumn, which means the bees, it'll be stored in the comb, which means the bees will be eating for longer, and it's also clean out the comb at the same time.
I think we had a question about queen introduction. Yes, you can use HiveAlive when introducing queens. As I mentioned, it's useful because by spraying the frames and bees with HiveAlive, it will help mask the queen pheromones, so it might make it easier to introduce your new queens. And Ian, will this presentation be available later to review? Yes. So this is actually the second webinar that we've run. The first one is already up on our Facebook page, and as soon as this presentation is over, it actually goes up onto our Facebook page as well, so you can watch the whole thing as many times as you want. Okay, so unless I've missed any questions.
Yeah, there's one I kind of answered already, but just to make, is there a cutoff date for once you open the bottle? Within the year, I suppose, is probably the safest bet. We used to say 6 months, but we know it lasts way longer than that. So to be on the safe side within the year. But store it in the right conditions, store it a cool, not a bright light place, not a hot place, not a cold place. So, you know, room temperature or not in freezing and not, say, above, not where it gets hot.
Perfect. And I just seen 2 more questions from Linda. I was just wondering about robbing behavior. Yeah, so as we mentioned, we have the optimal concentration of lemongrass so as to not cause robbing behavior. The syrup is attractive to bees without having too much lemongrass that it would cause robbing, which can be seen with some other feed supplements. And then quickly from Stephen, can HiveAlive be used at the same time as Tylenol and terramycin? So I believe they're antibiotics for AFB treatment. Yes, they can be used at the same time, but hopefully if you use HiveAlive continually, you have reduced incidence of these pathogens and have healthier colonies, so that hopefully you can reduce your usage of these treatments.
Found another question here. Someone's asking, they've been told the mold in feeders will not hurt the bees. Is this so? I wouldn't be eating it. As simple as that, I suppose. You know, it's not ideal. No, no. Actually, I think that can cause dysentery. Not Nosema dysentery, but I believe it can cause dysentery as well. Yeah. So no, it's not good. Don't be feeding bees moldy syrup.
Oh, and I just found another one. So is this considered treatment or preventative for Nosema? From Doug. As I mentioned, it's a feed supplement. So in order to be able to actually be considered a treatment, you have to go and about approval process to be a veterinary medicine, which is a long, expensive process. So we didn't see that as the best route for us. So we are a feed supplement. So we're limited in the claims that we can make on our labeling. But the independent research done does show that it helps keep Nosema levels low long term. Okay, so unless I've missed any questions, someone please let me know. But we might move on to announce the winner so that all of you can get back to your day. So pass it over to you, Liam.
Thank you, Linda and Dara. Okay, I think David is just about ready to announce the winners, but to give him a couple more minutes. So we've given you our email address already, info@hivealivebees.com. You could also email us here to be added to our newsletter, where you'll get access to discounts, to competitions, news about new products, beekeeping news, etc. And You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Now, David, are you ready to announce the winners?
Yep, ready to go this side, Liam.
Okay, perfect. So we'll hand you over to David.
Thanks, Liam. So thanks very much to everyone who left a comment during our webinar. Once again, you've all been entered into a draw to win a bottle of HiveAlive. So this week's 3 winners picked at random are Dennis Schmidt, Linda Green-Premke, and Richard Weekly. So congratulations to the 3 of you. If you'd like to direct messages or email us your address, that would be great, so we can send out the bottle of HiveAlive as soon as possible. Thanks a million.
So it's
Dennis Schmidt, DENNISSCHIMIDT.
And Linda and Richard. So pop in a quick comment. Hope you've heard that you're a winner. And please email us to pass on your address details so that we can get your bottles out to you.
Okay, and that's everything from us for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to hear from you directly, or we hope we'll see you again on future webinars. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.